We're now joined by Ntsumbedzeni Nemasisi, Promotion of Access to Information Act Executive at Information Regulator South Africa. He joins us via our video link. So thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. I mean, you have received a complaint about SARS when it comes to the former president's tax records. So what does this complaint actually entail?
Thank you so much, Mbale, and good evening to the viewers at home. Indeed, we have received a complaint from Mr. Warren Thompson. He used to work for the Financial Mail, but he's now based in London. He works for Finance Uncovered. But in short, this complaint emanated in 2017, where Mr. Thompson alleged that evidence has emerged that the former president, Mr. Zuma, was not tax compliant during his presidency. And then what happened is that he then submitted a prior request to the SARS, and SARS obviously refused access to information, and they relied on certain provision of Tax Administrative Act as well as the certain section 35 of PAIA to refuse access. And this matter was then taken to court, to the High Court. The High Court directed that the records of Mr. Zuma should be disclosed, and SARS took this matter to the Constitutional Court. And the Constitutional Court then declared certain section of the Tax Administrative Act to be unconstitutional and remitted this matter back to SARS Commissioner to reconsider his decision after having been given guidance on how he should address any request for access to information. And that's the reason why then those tax records of the former president, dating back to the date in which he was the president, 2010 to 2018, was the SARS Commissioner was requested to take a decision, and he refused access, and we then receive a complaint to investigate.
And when it comes to the promotion of access to information, especially when it comes to high-level public figures like the former president and dealing with the former president's tax affairs and it being in the interest of the public, is the president or the former president afforded the same right as all other citizens in this country?
Obviously, if you hold a public office, you cannot be treated like anyone else in terms of the level of transparency that is expected of you, especially when you are the president at the time. So we're dealing with the constitutional right of access to information, wherein our constitution provides that everyone has got rights of access to information, to any information for that nature. So in terms, then access to information can be refused under exceptional circumstances, because this is the constitutional right of access to information. So in terms of our investigation as the information regulator, ours is very simple. We're dealing with the constitutional right. So the SARS has to justify its reason why access to those records of the former president should not be disclosed. And we then test those reasons why access should not be granted against the public interest override. And that's what we're going to look at to say, is it in the public interest to refuse access, or access to information must be disclosed in the public interest? And that's the test that we're going to apply. But in applying those tests, we also look at the protection of personal information, and we balance those with the right of access to information. And we will come to the conclusion as to whether those records should be decided or not, should be granted or not.
And when it comes to the protection of personal information, and what sort of protections do high-level public servants have? I mean, you are saying that he's not an ordinary South African citizen because, I mean, he is the former president, and there is that issue of public interest. What protections do they enjoy under this act?
Look, everybody does enjoy the right to privacy, which is also a constitutional right. And that's what the information regulator performed dual mandates in terms of protecting the personal information, but also promoting the access to information. So our obligation is to now balance to say, does the right to privacy outweigh the public interest? And that's what we're going to do as we conduct investigation on this matter. And we're hoping that by before the end of May, the investigation should be completed. We should be able to issue the report and give direction as to whether access to those records should be granted or not.
Have there been any previous, complaints as well when it comes to SARS about, access to information like this?
Look, there's been complaints before which we didn't go through the investigation. We managed to resolve it through mediation because as the information regulator, we do have the power to facilitate mediation between the parties. And that matter that was brought to us, we managed to facilitate settlement, and SARS managed to disclose those records after our engagement. But on this matter, we are actually conducting an investigation, and investigation report will be finalized and referred to the enforcement committee, and members will then issue an enforcement notice after completing our investigation. So this is not the first complaint that we have against SARS.
What makes this investigation very important, especially the one pertaining to the former president, especially at a time where, public officials are always questioned and such records can make its way through the public? What makes this one important?
It is very significant, I think, for the public, especially when you have to balance the issue of public interest against the right to privacy, because that's where, and for you, it is a very complicated aspect that we need to look at, because what we need to check is whether the disclosure of these records will actually reveal any evidence of contravention with the law. So the allegations that we have is that the former president was not paying his tax during his presidency, or was not tax compliant. So we have to be provided with evidence that indeed he was not tax compliant for us to be able to make findings that those records should indeed be disclosed. And that's where we look at the issue of public interest to say if there was non-compliance with the law, if the records will reveal non-compliance with the law, therefore it should be disclosed. And that's what the law provides, that if there is allegation of non-compliance with the law and there's evidence that support that, therefore it means it's in the public interest to disclose that, because we have the duty to ensure that where there is non-compliance, then the law must take its course. But for us as the information regulator, we only determine whether access should be granted or not. And once access is granted, then those who requested access to those records are the ones who then take the matter further.